You know, there are moments in your life, just ordinary Monday mornings, when you realize you're watching a bully, a real specimen of entitlement, and the whole world is just looking down at their coffee, hoping it'll go away. But it never does, right? I'm Jake Garrison, single dad, Army vet, just trying to clock an 8-hour shift at the lumberyard and keep the lights on for my daughter Phoebe. I was nursing a lukewarm black coffee at the Sunrise Grill, my usual corner booth, when Preston Thorpe walked in. Preston... He didn't just walk in, he entered, like the whole Greasy Spoon was his private stage. He owned half the commercial property in Cedar Creek, and he made sure everyone knew it, every breath, every tailored suit, every slammed hand. He went straight for the counter where Alara Vance was wiping down the chrome. Alara, she had that weary, practiced smile service workers master when their feet hurt and their patience is gone. "Morning, Mr. Thorpe," she said, calm as anything. "The usual fast, please." He didn't even look at her. Just planted both palms on the counter, leaning in too close. You know that aggressive personal space violation? Fast isn't good enough, Alara. I have global calls. I want my breakfast yesterday. Why am I always waiting here forever? I glanced at my watch, then the door. The guy had walked in maybe 3 minutes ago, forever. The whole grill got quiet. You could hear the coffee machine hiss, the faint clinking from the back, and the sudden loud silence of everyone pretending to be fascinated by their toast. Alara, to her credit, stayed steady. "Sir, I apologize for the inconvenience. I'll put the order in right away." Inconvenience? "This is incompetence," he spat out. The volume was unnecessary, the cruelty intentional. "Do you know who I am? I could buy this whole block and turn it into a parking lot tomorrow." That's when something just snapped. Not military rage, not anger, just a calm, definitive no. The kind of no you learn in a hostile environment where hesitation gets you hurt. My chair scraped the linoleum. Loud, too loud. I stood up. "Sir," I said, my voice low, just loud enough to cut through his bluster. "Take a step back. She asked you nicely." Preston Thorpe turned his whole body toward me, slow motion, sizing me up. The faded jeans, the work boots, the flannel shirt with the slight rip. He saw a nobody, a grunt. "Excuse me," he sneered, his eyes barely bothering to meet mine. "This doesn't concern the help." "Actually, it does," I countered, stepping slightly out of the booth into the aisle. "My business is finishing my coffee without watching a grown man bully a kid over 3 minutes. You need to back off now." He let out a short, nasty laugh. "Mind your own business, broke-down soldier." The veteran insult was deliberate, a low blow. He saw the way I held myself, the posture that doesn't fade. I didn't flinch. I just pulled the receipt out of my pocket, unfolding it with agonizing slowness. "Here's my business, Preston. My receipt says 9:47 a.m. My watch says 9:51. That's 4 minutes, not forever. Now you can leave her alone or you can talk to the manager. Your choice." He was furious. His face was blotchy, his confidence flickering because I used facts, not emotion. He glared at Alara, then Sarah, the manager, who had emerged from the back, her hands shaking. He left with a threat hanging in the air like a bad smell. "This isn't over. I have connections." "Yeah. Connections. That's always the line, isn't it?" I walked out that morning, feeling that familiar knot in my gut, knowing I'd just traded my peace for a moment of integrity. I left an extra-large tip for Alara and drove to the lumberyard, and Preston was no bluffer. 3 hours later, a text. My weekend security job at the warehouse, the money I needed for Phoebe's tutoring, gone. Budget cuts, they said. Right. The cold shoulder started immediately. Marcus at the hardware store avoiding my eyes, neighbors crossing the street. I felt like I was walking around with a giant invisible sign. Liability. It was a slow, quiet drowning. The fear wasn't about me, it was about Phoebe. "Dad," she asked one night over lukewarm spaghetti, "are we going to have to move?" That question, it hits you like a mortar blast. Are we going to be okay? The man was a cancer in this town. When I met Sarah and Alara behind the diner days later, Sarah pulled out a small, worn notebook. It wasn't for orders, it was a ledger of cruelty. Tony, the mechanic, closed down. Linda, the baker, forced out. 43 names. 43 lives systematically crushed because they said no to Preston Thorpe. "He picks people who can't fight back," Sarah whispered, pointing at the margin notes. "Economically vulnerable, single parents, people living paycheck to paycheck. Me. That was me." Then the local sheriff's deputy showed up. Young guy, clean-cut and professional, investigating Preston's claim that I had threatened him. But the witness statements, Sarah, 3 customers, they all backed my story. Still, the deputy warned me. Preston was filing a restraining order. A civil claim for fear and harassment. It would tie me up in court, bleed my savings dry, and officially stamp me as unstable. And Alara, she was the wild card. She talked about tenant rights and legal precision like she'd argued cases in a boardroom, not wiped down counters. I asked her point blank, "Who are you, really?" She just smiled that tiny, knowing smile. "Let's just say I have family resources that might be useful, Jake. But we have to wait for Preston to overplay his hand." The hand he overplayed? He set up a community meeting, a public tribunal at the Grill, the Downtown Stability Forum. He started right away, hitting hard. "We need to shield our community from volatile men," he preached, using my veteran status as a weapon, painting me with the broad, ugly brush of PTSD stereotype. But the moment of truth came when Sarah stood up, phone recording, and calmly refuted his entire account. And then Preston made the mistake he'd been waiting for. He attacked Sarah's credibility. That's when Alara spoke. Not the tired waitress, not the shy student, but a voice of cold, sharp legal authority that sliced through the room. "Actually, Mr. Thorpe," she said, cutting him off, her posture changing completely. "What we witnessed was someone defending themselves against calculated public defamation. Your conduct constitutes harassment and potentially unlawful retaliation." The room cracked. People stopped staring at me and started staring at Alara. Preston's smug face froze. He tried to dismiss her. "This is a conversation between business leaders, Miss Vance. Your input isn't really—" "My input is entirely relevant," she countered, her voice now steel, not cream. "Because using economic leverage to silence individuals who assert their legal rights is actionable under federal law." A ripple went through the crowd. And then Deputy Reed stepped forward, notebook out, looking straight at Preston. Official notes: the show was over. Preston's public character assassination had just backfired into a very public admission of civil rights violations. But the final, deepest cut was yet to come. The next day, the school counselor called. "He tried to take my daughter. That's where you draw the line in the sand, right? Everything else is business, but attacking my kid? That's war." I met Alara that afternoon, not at the Grill, but at her apartment. It wasn't a service worker's studio. It was a sleek, impeccably designed space with art on the walls that cost more than my annual income. "Jake, I owe you clarity," she said, gesturing to a leather couch that probably cost as much as my truck. "I'm actually Alara Brooks, as in the Brooks Technology Foundation." She opened a slim folder. It was a goldmine of financial traces, ownership chains, and legal filings. "I've been working undercover here for 6 months," she explained, her voice steady, professional, "investigating systemic civil rights violations where local power structures prevent oversight. Preston Thorpe has been on our radar for 18 months. You, Jake, just gave us the lead witness we needed to take him down." She called in the legal cavalry. Diana Rossi, a sharp attorney who looked like she fought dragons for breakfast. The plan: a national civil rights lawsuit. Diana laid out the documents, a declaration of war against Preston Thorpe and his entire system of coercion. "Victor will strike harder," Diana warned. "You will have to survive relentless scrutiny." I thought about the 43 victims Sarah documented, about Phoebe's face when she asked if we had to move, and about the man who committed suicide because he couldn't fight anymore. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Everything," Diana said. "Every document, every detail. The moment you sign this, you're not just a single father anymore. You're a federal plaintiff." I signed. And then Alara gave me the ace. Her father's foundation would provide full financial support, housing, legal fees, living expenses, to protect me and Phoebe throughout the litigation. The barrier of being economically vulnerable was gone. The timing, though, was pure cinema. Monday morning, 2 a.m. I'm in the school counselor's office, Mrs. Peterson, for the baseless home environment investigation. I calmly pulled out my phone, started recording, and told her the concerns she received were part of a systematic harassment campaign being investigated by federal authorities. Her face went pale. "Federal authorities?" School districts run from that word like fire. I gave her the case number. She stopped the investigation immediately, terrified of being seen as retaliating against a protected federal witness. And right around that same time, Alara and Diana's team were serving Preston Thorpe with the papers. That evening, Preston called an emergency business meeting at the community center, claiming federal overreach. He was cornered. Then Alara walked in. She went to the front poised, radiating confidence. "Mr. Thorpe," she announced, the entire room quiet. "It's time this town knew who I really am. My name is Alara Brooks, and for the past 6 months, I've been working undercover for the Brooks Technology Foundation in cooperation with national civil rights investigators." She put her father, Marcus Brooks, the CEO, on speaker. In walked Diana Rossi and an FBI special agent. The whole oppressive power structure Preston built, all those threats, all that quiet fear, crumbled in one moment. The FBI agent confirmed the federal charges. Alara laid out the documented evidence of 43 harassment campaigns. Preston tried to rage about entrapment, but his voice was hollow. He was done. 6 months later, I'm back in my corner booth at the Sunrise Grill. The receipt from that Monday morning is framed behind the counter. Evidence of truth, Sarah calls it. Preston settled the federal case. $2 million in damages, permanently barred from rental properties in 3 states. Tony and Linda are back in business, and me? I'm now a civil rights investigator for the Brooks Foundation. My military discipline, my experience of being targeted, it's actually an asset. I go into communities just like Cedar Creek, catching the Prestons of the world before they can crush 43 lives. Phoebe comes in, smiling, holding a thick envelope. Stanford, full scholarship for pre-law, international human rights. She's already plotting on coordinating her study abroad with my new international casework. Alara, still in her grill uniform sometimes, brings the coffee. She's still doing foundation work, but now it's out in the open. And then, a young woman from the downtown bank approaches me, hesitant but determined. "Mr. Garrison," she whispers, "I think my boss might be doing some of the same things Preston did. I've been keeping notes, a new case, a new victim, but this time an early warning." We walk out to the truck. Phoebe looks at me, her eyes clear and hopeful. "Dad," she asks, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't spoken up that morning?" I stop, looking back at the diner, at the framed receipt. I think about the man who lost everything, the person who committed suicide because they felt utterly alone. "Staying silent wasn't an option, sweetie," I reply, pulling her close. "Not when I had the power to do something. You see, the cost of being brave, it's high, but the cost of staying silent, that's always higher. And that's the real lesson, isn't it? That one single ordinary moment of courage, just telling a bully to step back, can crack open an entire system of fear and change not just one life, but 43. What about you? Have you ever had to choose the high cost of standing up versus the long, slow damage of staying silent? When does a small local bully become a case of systematic injustice? Let us know in the comments below. Like and share this story if it resonated with that fire in your gut. And don't forget to subscribe, because the fight for truth